Unlocking Deuteronomy, the shocking truth that changes everything forever at 3 a.m. On a night steeped in the whispers of the ancients, a chill gripped the air as the clock struck 3. In that eerie stillness, secrets long buried lay ready to rise. The kind of secrets that jolted the marrow in your bones. A hidden message buried in the book of Deuteronomy promised to change everything we thought we knew. This wasn't just another late-night conspiracy, it was a call to unearth the unthinkable. Somewhere in the flickering depths of that text, something dark and twisted beckons, sending shivers down spines across the country. As the amateur detective, Tommy Lee, scanned the text, his heart raced. Words leaped off the page, blinking in the night like the eyes of a predator stalking its prey. Every syllable dripped with an urgency that spoke of age-old truths crammed into the language of the past. His fingers trembled as they brushed against the yellowed paper. What if this was the key? The thought lingered in his mind like a phantom, taunting him with possibilities both thrilling and terrifying. Suddenly, a screech echoed through the silence, sending a shockwave of adrenaline through him. What was that? His heart pounded, a deafening drum in his chest. In the dim light, shadows danced on the walls like ghosts whispering warnings. Was someone else trying to uncover the truth? Or was it something worse, a dark presence cloaked in the veil of night, drawing closer and closer? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air crackled with tension as Tommy, heart racing, turned his attention back to the text. The more he deciphered, the more he understood that this wasn't just a scripture. It was a puzzle, with dangerous stakes. Something monumental was at play. And just when the thrill clawed at his gut, reality slapped him hard. Someone was watching. The feeling sunk in, an icy knot twisting in his stomach. Was it the shadows? Or had he truly awakened something that should be stayed buried? As the darkness began to settle, a sudden urgency gripped him. He needed to know the truth. What about the warnings etched in ink that hinted at the consequences of unearthing such knowledge? The shadows deepened as he stared into the pages, daring them to reveal their secrets. But with every revelation came a greater risk. Tommy had a nagging feeling that the next step could unravel everything. As he leaned in closer, the pages trembling under the pressure of fate, he caught a flicker of motion in the corner of his eye. Just a shadow? Or was it something more? The tension swelled, questions spiraled like a tornado. Who or what was luring him deeper into this dark mystery? His breath caught in his throat. What terrifying truth awaited him just beyond the next line? The moment hung heavy in the air, the clock ticking ominously as though counting down to something inevitable. Tommy's heart hammered against his ribcage like a caged animal desperate for freedom. The faint click of something, was it a door creaking or fingers grazing leather? Pulled him from the reverie of ancient texts. He snapped his head toward the sound but saw nothing. The dim light flickered, casting playful shadows that seemed to taunt him, encouraging him deeper into dread. What if someone had followed him here? What if the secrets he sought were not meant for mortal eyes? Taking a deep breath, he snatched up his phone, illuminating the pages of Deuteronomy with its cold glow. The words shifted, alive with sinister promises. Each verse spoke of plagues that could befall a wayward nation and curses for those who dared disobey. The dread grew, a gnawing realization that these were not mere verses, they were warnings wrapped in the guise of scripture. Then he spotted a sentence that stood out, eyes glaring in the darkness, "Beware the shadows that guard the truth." His pulse quickened. Shadows? Was that a metaphor, or was it real? As if answering his unarticulated fear, a low thrum filled the air, vibrating through the floorboards, raising the hairs on his arms. The shadows in the corners seemed to swell, pulsating like a living entity. "Who is there?" His voice cracked, a desperate plea into the void. Silence answered, thick and malevolent. Tommy felt himself teetering on the edge of sanity, a thread stretching until it was almost fraying. He turned back to the book, needing answers, grounding himself in the words that had sparked this madness. Flipping the pages with fervor, he stumbled upon a passage that made his blood run cold. "Only truth feared holds power over the damned." Fear clenched his gut. What kind of truth was he to face? Just as the words sunk in, an overwhelming cold washed over him, igniting every instinct to flee. But it wasn't the frigid air that paralyzed him, it was the figure emerging from the shadows. That a silhouetted form shifted, a dark presence that hung in the doorway. It was indistinct, defined only by a fog-like outline that warped the very air around it. Tommy's breath hitched in his throat, heart racing as adrenaline surged. Tommy had whispered his name, the voice weaving through the room like smoke. "You've sought the unseekable. You've touched what was never meant for you." He stumbled back, the reality of his situation sinking like lead in his chest. Was this the dark force manifesting from the text's hidden secrets? Just then, a sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. Shards of glass exploded into the hallway, cutting through the thick tension. Tommy's instinct kicked in, he bolted towards the noise, fueled by fear and urgency. What or who had shattered the boundary between the past and present? He reached the threshold, heart thumping as he peered into the darkness where he'd left the safety of his cluttered sanctuary. There amidst the jagged glass lay a note, something scrawled in a hurried hand, drenched in red. As he grasped it, the door swung behind him with a deafening slam. The note read, "You've unleashed them." The air thickened, a palpable dread settling around him. Who had been unleashed? What truths rested deeper in the darkness? And how could he control the chaos he had inadvertently released upon himself? He braced himself, stepping into the unknown. The shadows hummed with unsettling energy, and the haunting whisper returned. The pages of scripture flipped back to life in his mind, revealing only one truth: he had only just begun to unearth the darkness within. But a question lingered, curling around his mind like smoke: was it too late to turn back? The shadows were closing in, ready to consume him whole. The shadows writhed as Tommy stood in the kitchen, adrenaline surging through him. He felt the temperature drop, the air thick with an unspeakable weight. The note crumpled in his palm seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, echoing his own rapid rhythm. Unleash them. The words echoed relentlessly in his mind. What were them? Were they the spirits referred to in the book? Or something more sinister? He turned abruptly, scanning the room as if expecting to see something materialize. Determined not to let fear paralyze him, Tommy reached for the nearest light switch. Illumination broke through the oppressive gloom, casting stark beams across the splattered chaos of the shattered glass, fragile reminder of whatever had transpired. Suddenly, the flickering light bulb sputtered, causing brief shadows to dance menacingly on the walls. For a moment, he glimpsed an unsettling form, a flicker of movement just beyond the reach of the light. "Show yourself!" he yelled, voice steady despite the tremor in his limbs. Silence followed, amplifying his dread. His instincts screamed at him to run. But he couldn't. Not after everything he had gone through to find the truth. As he bent down, carefully picking up jagged pieces of glass, a chill ran down his spine. The note now felt hotter in his grip, almost as if it were alive, gnawing at him. He didn't want to, but he had to read it again. Suddenly, he heard it again, the whisper, a cacophony of voices swirling around him. It was now louder, chanting in a language so ancient it made his skin crawl. He pressed his palms against his ears, trying to shut it out, but it continued to invade his mind. "Tommy, join us." The entity's voice was both serene and terrifying. "Get out of my head," he shouted, voice cracking as he dropped the note and stumbled back. Every instinct in him told him to flee, but he remained rooted in place, caught between curiosity and survival. Then he felt it. A heaviness, an energy crawling along his skin. It drummed in rhythm with his heart, escalating with each passing second. His breathing quickened, and he looked frantically around the dim kitchen. And that s when he saw it, a faint glowing outline in the far corner. The air shimmered while shadows twisted around it, almost as if a portal was opening. His breath caught as he realized he had tapped into something much greater, something that mangled the very fabric of reality. "Tommy," the whisper returned, now seductive and siren-like. Come to the truth. His heart raced with a combination of fear and intrigue. Was it leading him to answers or to absolute ruin? He felt a pull, a magnetic connection to the unknown. Before he could allow himself to think, he moved toward the glowing outline. Each step felt like wading through deep water, exhausting yet irresistible. The kitchen transformed around him, distorting the familiar and inviting chaos. The shadows thickened, swirling around him like a dark tide. He felt fingers cold, grasping. "You've come to reclaim what was lost," the eerie choir echoed, enticing and sinister. What was lost? He wondered aloud. What had he stumbled upon? What power loomed just beyond the veil? Before he reached the outline, a sharp pain pulled him back. The glass beneath his feet crunched, and a searing heat enveloped him. He fell, tumbling as the shadows closed in, their whispers growing faint yet more intense, splitting the air around him. Just then, the air surged with energy, and everything shifted as if space itself was unfolding. Tommy fought against the pull, desperate to understand yet terrified of what lay ahead. "Face the shadows, Tommy." They hissed, now louder than before, piercing through the veil of uncertainty. With one final inhale, he threw himself at the glowing shape, ready to embrace whatever awaited him on the other side. Would he finally uncover the truth that had eluded him? Or would he succumb to the consuming darkness? And in that moment, he felt the boundary snap. Dark and light collided in a blinding flash, launching him into an abyss where the truth awaited, terrifying yet tantalizing. "What? If it's not just your life at stake," a voice echoed, weaving through the chaos as darkness enveloped him completely. What exactly had he unleashed? And would he be the one to stop it, or would he become its next victim? The world spun around Tommy like an out-of-control carousel. A blinding light enveloped him, tearing at the very fabric of his reality. His heart raced, pounding against his chest like a drum, echoing in the vast emptiness where sound seemed to drown beneath the static of existence. When the flash subsided, he found himself in a void, a complete absence of everything familiar. Gritty shadows whispered all around him, their voices a soft, sinister lullaby that crawled beneath his skin. Welcome, they beckoned, seductively soft, yet laced with menace. Tommy squinted into the darkness, struggling to regain his bearings. "Where am I?" His voice cracked, sounding small and insignificant among the swirling shadows. Katmos. The word felt heavy, coated in an ancient resonance. Something deep within him stirred a dormant memory, perhaps. He remembered the book, the warnings, the tales spun around the fire shared long ago. "Show yourself." He yelled again, his voice echoing like a clap of thunder. Immediately, the air trembled, thick with tension. The whispers turned frantic, drowning him in a swell of sound. "You've come to finish what was started, to unlock the forbidden." His pulse quickened. Was this a dream? An elaborate trap? The shadows flickered and coalesced, forming shapes and figures, tormented faces contorted in anguish. They reached out, fingers stretching like thin, grasping tendrils, searching for something. "What's wrong? Are you lost?" A voice slithered through the darkness. It was eerily familiar, too sweet, too filled with deceit. He shook his head, pinching himself to dispel the nightmare. But this was real. "I want to be part of this," he screamed. His very essence screamed in protest, echoing his refusal, but the shadows drew closer, suffocating him with heat and darkness. "You already are. You have opened the door, Tommy." With an energy surge, Tommy thrust his hand out, as if he could physically push back the encroaching form. And then, he remembered he still held the note. It was his only lifeline. Desperate to reclaim it, he rummaged through the void until its crumpled texture met his fingers. Unleash them. He breathed the words aloud, the gravity hitting him like a wave of icy water. I unleashed them. What was it meant to? The ground beneath him trembled. Reality shuddered, shadows twisted at the edges, teetering on the brink of forming something monstrous, something like a nightmare made flesh. Embrace or be consumed, they hissed, their voices shifting from soothing to chaotic. He squeezed the note tightly, feeling the heat radiating from it. A sudden clarity surged through him as the panic ebbed slightly. No. You don't control me. Tommy shouted, standing his ground against the dark tide. The shadows paused, teetering in their own swirling dance. He could sense a fissure, a crack in their suffocating grip. You wield power, Tommy. But with power comes a price. What price? He demanded, fists clenching. What did I unleash? We are the echoes of what you seek, replied the voice, clearer now, resonating deep within him. To find truth, you must face the darkness, not just here but within. The shadows began retreating, forming a vast, dark portal behind Tommy. With each breath, the air pulsed with a weighty energy. It beckoned him, tugging at his very core. Do you dare? They whispered as the void pulled away, offering a glimpse of clarity and of doom. His heart raced as he stood at the precipice. This was more than just about him now. Questions swirled chaotically in his mind, amplifying the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his resolve. A single thought echoed above all others: what lay beyond the darkness? The choice weighed heavily upon him. Will you confront the unknown, Tommy? The shadows stirred eagerly, seeming to sense his hesitation. Or will you turn away? An imagery of his loved ones flashed in his mind, faces that were now shrouded in fear due to his actions. What if the truth he sought could shatter everything he held dear? Could he truly face it? And in that moment, he realized, the only way forward was through the darkness. With his heart thumping wildly, he stepped toward the waiting void, preparing himself for whatever lay ahead. What if their offer was the key to both saving his world and condemning it? As the shadows wrapped around him anew, Tommy whispered into the darkness, I accept. Would he find liberation or unleash chaos beyond comprehension? The shadows engulfed Tommy, spinning him into the bleakness of the unknown. He felt weightless, floating as if freed from his own flesh. For a heartbeat, he thought he had transcended reality, but then came the pull, a jerk of his soul back into a world that seemed both foreign and eerily familiar. Tommy landed hard on gritty ground, a stark contrast to the fluidity he had just experienced. Wincing, he looked up and the sight snatched the breath from his lungs. Before him lay a desolate landscape, diffused in shades of gray and black, a twisted version of his town. Buildings he recognized loomed like broken teeth, jagged and menacing. The streets were empty, silence stretching out like a taut string ready to snap. Where am I? He uttered, the words barely escaping his parched throat. That depends, a voice snickered from the shadows. It dripped with malice, swirling around him. Do you want to find out how deep the rabbit hole goes? Tommy's heart dropped. There it was again, the beckoning of the familiar whisper. Who are you? He called out, anger rising like bile. Show yourself. The air crackled, and the shadows seemed to solidify, morphing into a figure. It was a woman, her features sharp, eyes glinting with an insatiable hunger. I'm someone who knows what you've done. You unleashed us, Tommy. How does that feel? I didn't mean to. He fought back, feeling the heat of shame beat up across his skin. Each word they spoke twisted his gut like a vice. I just wanted to understand. Understand? She chuckled, darkly. Or be understood. You know nothing of what you've walked into. Your actions have consequences, catastrophic ones. Tommy scoffed, though dread clawed at him. You're just shadows. You can't hurt me. Oh, but we can. The shadows pulsed around her, and suddenly images erupted from the darkness, scenes of his family, friends, the nights he spent barely breathing beneath the weight of his own failures. Each flicker felt like a razor edge slicing into him. Feel that? That's the reality of your choices. As panic surged, Tommy frantically scanned the horizon. The distorted landscape began to shift, longing to morph into a hellish version of his cherished childhood memories, only to twist into something grotesque. No. Stop. Embrace it, the woman purred, stepping closer. It's a glimpse into the power you've awakened. With knowledge comes strength, but so does torment. The price, he murmured, suddenly realizing how intertwined his fate truly was with this unholy realm. The burdens of his past crushed him, and for a fleeting moment, he yearned to flee. Something deep within him, an inner voice, urged him to fight back, to reclaim his destiny. What do you want from me? He demanded, defiance flaring in his chest. To be your puppet. Not a puppet, a player. Mankind has written themselves into a corner, and you hold the pen to rewrite it. But there's always a catch, Tommy. Power demands sacrifice, and sacrifice demands choices. She extended a hand, a tempting offer shimmering in the space between them. What will you choose? Mistrust coiled in his gut. He thought of the sacrifices he had witnessed. It wasn't he only his fate hanging in the balance, it was everything he'd ever cared about. I want to let you control me. Then you choose vulnerability, and with it, the shadows will consume you. The darkness writhed. Tommy felt it tugging at the edges of his mind, curling around his memories, grasping for weakness. No. I'm not afraid. Fear is your greatest ally, she hissed, eyes narrowing. It can lead you to power or drag you into madness. What if it's both? The weight of those words settled heavily in the air. As the shadows danced in joyous anticipation, Tommy wrestled with despair. The fabric of reality around him buzzed, throbbed, waiting for his decision. Could courage really defeat the terror suffocating him? Will you embrace the fog of despair or illuminate the darkness within? The question hung ominously above him, a sword poised to drop at any moment. Tommy took a labored breath, feeling the familiar pull of his childhood lullabies, the warmth of safety, a stark contrast to what lay before him. I'll face my darkness, he declared, though doubt gnawed at his resolve. The shadows stirred, silence falling all around him like a heavy blanket. Then prepare yourself for what's to come. As the shadows warped and converged, Tommy realized he hadn't just stepped into a battle for himself, but for everyone he loved. What horrors awaited him in the depths of this darkness? And was he truly ready to uncover the truth about himself and the power he had unleashed? The shadows convulsed violently, and Tommy felt the ground beneath him tremble. Panic surged through his veins like wildfire. He was torn between the familiar world he once knew and this terrifying abyss that beckoned him. He stood on the razor's edge of despair, each breath laced with dread. Your choice echoes louder than you realize, the woman taunted, her dark laughter clawing at his sanity. Every moment that passes inches you closer to the inevitable. Tommy's thoughts raced. The memories she'd unraveled were merciless, exposing his deepest fears, the failures, the regrets, the loved ones left behind. It was unbearable. What do you want from me? He shouted again, his voice mingling with the shadows, feigning strength he did not possess. Just a taste, she whispered, stepping forward as shadows swirled around her like a tempest. A taste of what you can become. You can bend the darkness to your will, but only if you truly surrender to it. Tommy flinched, glancing around at the morphed silhouettes of his town, now a haunting mirage. The buildings warped like grotesque puppets, their windows hollow and eyesless, watching him with judgment. His heart thudded painfully against his ribs. What do you mean, surrender? He asked, his voice strained, battling the oppressive weight of the moment. The woman's expression shifted, her eyes glinting like daggers. To embrace the pain, Tommy. To accept the burden of those you've wronged. To wield the anguish as your sword instead of being crushed beneath it. In that dreadful instant, a cacophony erupted from the past echoes of laughter, shouts of anger, and whispers of betrayal. Faceless figures emerged, their forms enveloped in shadows yet stitched into the fabric of Tommy's memories. "Mom." He breathed, recognizing a fleeting image of his mother. "Dad?" "No. You can't. Everyone you have lost. Every ounce of regret becomes your ally in this realm," the woman interrupted, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. "Let them empower you. Let them guide you into the depths of your own fate." As the images danced around him, he felt their sorrow wrap around him, a blanket of guilt and fear. But amidst it all was a spark, a flicker of determination igniting within him. "No," he murmured, shaking his head as he fought against their pull. "I want to be your pawn." The shadows rippled, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in the woman's eyes. "Every soul in this realm carries a blade, Tommy. You wield it by confronting the tangle of choices you've made. Don't underestimate the power of your past." The ground quaked, and with a surge of defiance, he roared, "I will not be your puppet. I'll redefine this void. If I can't enlighten its darkness, then I will fight to find light within." The shadows fell silent for a fraction of a moment, as if considering his declaration. Then, a low rumble echoed through the desolate streets, the ground trembling beneath the weight of his challenge. "Very well, player," the woman hissed, her demeanor shifting from seductive to thunderous rage. "You've chosen to defy the darkness. You will understand its full measure." In that heartbeat, the landscape fractured, fissures splitting the ground that yawned into endless abyss. Tommy gasped, feeling the earth shift beneath him, a terrifying reminder of the consequences he now faced. "Face the shadows of your past, Tommy." The woman shrieked, her voice resonating like the toll of a bell. "Embrace what lies ahead. If you're brave enough to tread this path, be prepared for what you might become." As the shadows surged forward, Tommy felt the pull of darkness wrap tighter around him, a thousand nightmares converging. Yet deep down, beneath the layer of fear, he clutched the burgeoning ember of hope that blazed daringly within him. Would he break the cycle of despair or become yet another lost soul in this unforgiving realm? And as the darkness threatened to overwhelm him, Tommy steeled himself for the true challenge that lay ahead. What monstrous truths awaited in the shadows, ready to rip open the seams of his reality? The chasm yawned, a swirling vortex of despair that threatened to swallow Tommy whole. The woman's laughter twisted like a knife in the air, slicing through the silence that followed his declaration. He felt the shadows pressing in, coiling around him as dread hung thick in the atmosphere. "Embrace the shadows," she commanded, her voice dripping with poison. "Let your past seep into your veins, fuel your strength." Tommy felt the cold tendrils of regret curling around him, tugging at the very core of his being. He closed his eyes briefly, picturing the faces of those he'd lost, each smile like a brand on his heart, a testament to failures that sunk him deeper into guilt. Yet amid that pain, something flickered, a defiance he never knew was there. "I refuse to be defined by my past," he shouted, his voice cracking but resolute. The ground trembled again, the shadows hissing in agitation. The woman stepped closer, her eyes narrowing into slits of malevolence. "You have no choice, Tommy. Every decision pulls you deeper into this abyss. Surrender is inevitable." Suddenly, the figures from his memories flickered in and out of focus, their faces now twisted in agony. "You don't deserve to forget," one whispered, a man with weary eyes that once held kindness. "You left us behind." "No. I didn't mean to." Tommy cried, clenching his fists so tight his nails bit into his palms, grounding him against the swell of despair. "Lies. You've been running all your life." The woman sneered, the shadows swirling furiously around her. "But here, you can't escape." The air grew heavy, thick with unresolved grief. It was intoxicating, this perpetual pull towards despair. He could feel his resolve weakening under the weight of their accusations. But then, like fire igniting in dry grass, he felt that ember within him flare. "Maybe I can't change the past," Tommy said through gritted teeth, "but I can control how it shapes my future. I will turn this pain into purpose." The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if struck by his words. The woman's expression shifted, surprise etched in her otherwise cruel features. It infuriated her. You think you can fight me? They will always be your chains. With that, the ground erupted around him, fissures racing outward. Tommy stumbled, grasping desperately to keep his footing as the destruction swirled, trying to drag him into the void. Your past will consume you. You lose. Her voice echoed louder, mingling with the chaos around him. Not today. He yelled back, feeling a surge of energy. The shadows crackled with power as he drew from his memories not to get trapped in them but to rise above. The warmth ignited his chest, a fierce will coursing through his veins. In a movement driven by instinct, he plunged forward into the seething shadows, channeling every ounce of anger and regret into a single resolve. Somehow, he felt the shadows shift. They tugged, twisted, but beneath it all, he sensed a fractal of light, a path emerging through the darkness. Feel it, Tommy. The woman's fury intensified. You can't stand against what you've done. But he powered through, guided by the light that burst forth, piercing the shadows like a beacon. The swirling darkness began to unravel as he poured his essence into it, bending it to his will. And then he saw her face again, his mother's, the light illuminating her kindness, the love that remained despite his regrets. It stole his breath. His heart raced. But before he could grasp this shift, the shadows reared back, furious and relentless. They screeched, clawing at him, lashing out. You can't escape who you are. The intensity surged, pushing the darkness back, but Tommy could feel the limits of his strength fading. Just as the shadows lunged for him again, the light surged brighter, slashing through the darkness like a knife. He could feel a choice looming. Would he stay and face the shadows of his own design, or would he dive deeper into the realm of his making, forging a path to his own redemption? As the forces clashed violently around him, Tommy teetered on the brink of decision. What salvation could possibly await, tempered by pain? And as the darkness roared, threatening to snuff out the light, one question echoed in his mind: what if all of this was just the beginning? Tommy fought against the weight of the darkness pressing in on him. The shadows snarled and whipped, eager to swallow his resolve whole. The mere thought of the abyss beneath was enough to make his legs tremble. He needed a plan, a way to harness the flicker of defiance that ignited within him. Remember who you are. His heart screamed as he clenched his fists tighter. It was a mantra, a lifeline against the tide of despair. But the shadows hissed a chorus of doubt. You think you're strong? You're nothing without your regrets. Their words clawed at his mind, a relentless echo suffocating his courage. But within that chaos, the image of his mother remained, her loving gaze piercing through the void. That light wasn't just a memory, it was a beacon of hope. Suddenly, a primal scream surged from his soul, defiant and raw. Go to hell! He shouted, pushing against the shadows with every ounce of his being. The ground quaked again, as if the very earth recognized his resolve. The woman's laughter twisted into fury, cutting into him with her venomous breath. You're pulling your own destruction, child. This path you've chosen is paved with your failure. But what if failure didn't have to define him? Could he reshape it? An idea sparked, a crazy notion that perhaps his past was not just a series of chains, but also seeds of purpose waiting to bloom. He envisioned each regret turning into an anchor, grounding him, giving him the strength to forge a new way. Your shadows are my canvas. Tommy yelled, clenching his eyes shut for a moment to summon his strength. I will create from this darkness. With renewed ferocity, he lunged into the agitated shadows, embracing their contours. The fear surged, yet the agony that draped him felt different now. He was no longer a victim, he was a sculptor. Tommy grasped the lurking darkness and pulled it toward the light within, centering his focus on the memory of his mother's gentle touch. He could feel the collective surge of the shadows attempting to pull him into despair. But grasping his resolve, he poured everything into that memory, igniting the warmth of her love. The shadows writhed violently, contorting around him as they screamed in agony. "You cannot do this, you fool. It is not in your control." But Tommy was tired of being controlled, tired of being haunted. "No. I will not be the sum of my mistakes. I will rise." The shadows convulsed as light burst forth from within him like a supernova, forcing them to recoil as they were seized by his will. The tempest in the shimmering chasm swirled violently, dark against light, agony against love. Suddenly, the air shifted. A door he didn't know existed sprang open behind him, a portal shimmering with possibilities. Tommy's heart raced. It called to him with a resonating power, an opportunity to step away from the shadows and into a new dawn. "Step through, Tommy," the woman screeched, scrambling to regain control. "You have no idea what awaits. It's not escape, it's doom. You'll lose everything." But could everything be any worse than the shadows that had stalked him his entire life? With a deep breath, he steadied himself, focusing on the glimmer of light that danced in the portal. Before he could think twice, he plunged forward, heart racing, crossing the threshold. And then the world exploded, flashes of light and darkness melded into a cacophony of colors as sensations surged through him like a tidal wave. Was he alive? Was he losing himself completely? Then everything went quiet. Tommy stood in a shimmering void that felt eerily tranquil. Was this freedom? Or had he traded one prison for another? He took a deep breath, feeling the air thrum with energy. But as he glanced around, the question surged like a whisper in the wind: what awaited him on the other side of the chasm? And as the shimmering light began to dim, another thought bubbled in the depths of his mind: what if the shadows weren't finished with him yet? The silence weighed heavy, almost suffocating. Tommy felt his heart thunder in his chest, uncertainty drumming against his ribs. The vibrating energy around him felt at once invigorating and perilous. It whispered to him, promising wonders but also threats unseen. In the dimming light, shapes began to emerge, dancing like vivid dreams in the corner of his eye. Figures, hazy and indistinct, flickered in and out of existence. Were they lost souls, remnants of those who had walked this path before him? The thought sent a chill down his spine. "Tommy," a voice floated through the void, soft yet eerily familiar. He spun toward it, heart racing. His mother's face materialized before him, bathed in a golden glow. "You found your way here. But remember, the shadows follow." "Mom." His voice cracked, holding a mix of longing and fear. "I thought I lost you forever." She reached out, her hand shimmering like the portal he had just crossed. "You never lost me, Tommy. I've always been with you. But the shadows have made you their target. They sense your resolve." Desperation gnawed at his insides. "How do I fight them? I thought I was free." A tear slipped down her cheek, glistening in the fading light. "Freedom has a price. You must confront them head-on, but do not let them sway your heart. Every shadow feeds on fear, doubt, and the chaos within. If you still doubt yourself, they will take you. You have strength, but only if you believe." Before he could respond, the brightness around her began to fade, pulling her back into obscurity. "Fight, Tommy. Remember who you are," she urged, her voice trailing off. "Wait," he shouted, reaching for her, but she vanished like mist in the morning sun, leaving him shrouded in silence once more. Tommy's pulse quickened. He was all alone again, but this time he felt something different stirring within. A blend of fear and determination surged, a fire igniting in his core. He could feel it building, the memory of her presence wrapping around him like a shield. Suddenly, the void erupted. The shadows twisted into serpents, lunging toward him with gnarled teeth bared. Their whispers clawed at his mind once more, echoing like thunder. They taunted him, a cacophony of voices drowning in anger: "You think you can win? You will always be a failure, Tommy." "No." He roared back, his voice booming through the chaos. "I am not defined by my mistakes. I will not let you control me. A surge of light erupted from him, spilling into the void. It twisted and turned, wrapping around the shadows like a tight snare. The shadows recoiled momentarily, hissing and shrieking. But the hunger in them grew. You think this will save you? You have only begun to unravel what you are meant to face. The snakes of darkness retreated, swirling around him with the fury of a storm. He felt himself getting drawn in, their cold touch seeping into his bones. Desperately, he clawed at the light within him. But the shadows lashed back, pressing into his mind, memories of regret flooding him. Every failure, every painful moment rose up like a tsunami, overwhelming him. Stop! He screamed, but the words drowned in the darkness. Then, a spike of clarity. No more. With one last scream, he thrust his hands outward as if anchoring himself against the tides. Suddenly, he summoned every memory of strength, every ounce of love he had left. Light exploded from him, tearing through the darkness like a knife through paper, brighter than anything he had ever felt. The shadows recoiled, hissing in agony as they began to disintegrate, each scream swallowing the light behind them, but would this truly be enough? As the darkness writhed and shrank, Tommy felt a new question creeping in, a sensation of dread clawing at his heart. What if his own light was the last obstacle standing in his way? The struggle was only just beginning. Tommy's heart thundered in his chest, each echo vibrating through him like the rhythmic pounding of drums in a distant battle. The shadows lashed out, their whispers curling around him, sweet, toxic promises that clawed at his sanity. You're nothing. They screeched, angry tendrils twisting through the air. But at that moment, amid the chaos, Tommy found clarity. I am something. He roared, pulling from every well of strength he had. I am defined not by my failures, but by my fight. With determined resolve, he pulled the warmth of his mother's memory to the forefront, amplifying the light within him, transforming it into an unstoppable blaze. The shadows recoiled, a cacophony of rage and pain erupting from their core. Tommy felt their weight shift. It was time for him to take control. As he thrust his hands forward, light exploded between the two realms. The brilliance cut through the darkness like a knife, fracturing the shadows. Tommy felt their form unraveling, slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. Every ounce of terror that had gripped him began to dissolve. Enough! He shouted. You are not my past, you do not dictate my future. The shadows writhed, creating monstrous faces that contorted in agony, tangled in their own deceit. In that instant, visions flooded his mind, memories of his childhood, countless moments filled with laughter, warmth, and love. They fueled his resolve, becoming a shield against despair. He saw his father's proud smile, his mother's gentle embrace. You are more than your fears, he told himself. You have the power to rewrite the ending. But the echoes of doubt lingered, taunting him. You think you can erase your scars? Yes. He shouted back, as blinding brightness spilled from him, igniting the abyss and pushing back the consuming shadows. Tommy. A familiar voice called from the void. It was his mother's voice, imbued with strength. Remember the light, my love. You are stronger than you know. At her urging, Tommy reached deeper, summoning every ounce of warmth from those moments and fueling the energy within. Step back. A voice shrieked, contorting in anguish as the light surged. Tommy pressed forward, calling forth not just the memories that sustained him, but the promise of what lay ahead. The ground trembled beneath him as the shadows began to collapse, the intangible weight of despair lifting. For every dark sin, there was also love, joy, hope, collective memories that existed in the very fabric of his being. The shadows howled, morphing into fragmented echoes of what they once were, contorted in betrayal and regret. No. The woman's voice screamed, panic sharp in her tone. You'll be lost to the light. You're making a mistake. No. Tommy countered, letting the searing light consume every fiber of doubt tangled within. I'm choosing my path. With one final push, he thrust his palms outward and became a beacon, illuminating the darkness into a spectrum of shimmering colors. The shadows screamed in fury, their forms disintegrating into nothingness, unraveling like smoke in the wind. Light enveloped him, transforming the shadows into mist, reclaiming his past but refusing to be shackled by it. "I'm free!" he shouted, echoing into the void as colors exploded around him. He felt the warmth of acceptance and love wrap around his heart, grounding him. Just then, the landscape shifted. He was no longer standing in the warped remnants of his childhood town, but surrounded by a lush field bathed in light. Flowers danced in the gentle breeze, their colors vibrant against the bright blue sky. Tommy fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I did it, I defeated them." But amid the flutter of freedom, another thought crept in. Had he truly conquered the shadows, or merely postponed their return? "Remember," a soft voice echoed in the tranquility. "Your journey isn't over. You'll always face the shadows, but now you have the light to guide you." He took a deep breath, feeling renewed. Tommy rose to his feet, glancing back toward the horizon. The shadows had been banished, but their lessons echoed within him. There would always be darkness, but now he possessed the courage and strength to face it head-on. Tommy resolved to share his story, to be the light for others who might stumble into their own darkness. As he stepped forward into this new life, hope crystallized in his chest. This was his beginning. And he wouldn't just survive, he would thrive. As the scene faded, a spark ignited in the viewer's chest. What would they choose? Would they take control of their struggle? The final message was clear: every soul has the power to confront their own shadows and emerge, not unscathed, but empowered. Subscribe now to the channel. It's your chance to continue this journey with Tommy and unravel the next layer of truth hiding in plain sight. Smash that like button, your support means everything, and flood the comments with your thoughts, your theories. Let us share our paths and grow together. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who need this message. Now is the moment to stand in the light. Don't wait even one more second.